Well, it's really, really wonderful that we have Ellen Waterston here for 4 events this weekend. And it's just marvelous that we get so much of her time and so much of her energy and to hear so much of her work. Tonight she'll be talking about her own and a little bit about some other people's. And being selected as Oregon's Poet Laureate is really a phenomenal thing. And she doesn't know this, but I happen to be on the selection committee for the Poet Laureates. So every couple of years when this comes up, we get a whole raft of information about different poets who've been recommended. And we all rate them and we get together and we talk and this, that, and the other. And I can just say it's a really big deal to be selected as the Poet Laureate of Oregon. And I'm just so happy that you're here. Ellen has won several awards as a poet, but also she's written quite a lot of nonfiction works about the desert Southwest, basically a ranch wife from the Crooked River area, and then quite an astonishing person in the literary arena of Bend, and has created a couple of very interesting writing workshops. The Writing Ranch is one thing that she's created, but then there's traveling down the Baja, which is a journey you can take with her to out of the country, to go somewhere else and have writing experiences. And then there's an award that the Waterston Writing Award, Desert Writing Prize. So these are things that have come into fruition because she's a wonderful people person, because she's such a great writer, and because she writes so well. So she has her books here, except for the one she forgot to bring, which is her latest. And this is Via Lactea, which is what some of us in the Writers Guild are going to be performing tomorrow at the hotel. And so I'll pass out information about that afterwards. But I don't want to take up any more of her time. She's writing as I'm speaking. But
Say thank you, Kate. I had no idea. It's so mysterious, the process. It's very mysterious, and I came out of the blue. I had no idea I'd made it through the first cut or any of the other cuts. And I was told I couldn't tell anybody for 2 weeks when I got the call. I will tell you, I was changing out of my bathing suit. I don't want to get too specific. Back east, where I grew up, here comes a call from an Oregon number. I thought, I don't recognize it, but hey. I answered, hi, it's Oregon Humanities somebody. You've been designated, you want to do it, you're so exciting, an honor. And I was just, okay. But I could tell my family. I figured it wouldn't make its way across the continent in 2 weeks. But thank you all. Thank you, Isabel, Janelle. I don't know if Janelle's here. I don't see you, but I don't blame her because she's got so much to do. But that's quite a troika of organizers, and I'm really excited for the next few days of working here in this wonderful county. So tonight, I not only look forward to sharing my personal enthusiasm for birdsong, for poetry and prose, but also showcasing poetry as the agent of understanding as we strive to find, really must find, common ground, common humanity. Seems to be, well, sort of capital letters on that lately. So I thought I'd read a short excerpt from my just released collection of essays, which I happen to have forgotten copies of, which is what makes me into the best self-promoter ever. But that means you can go to the book parlor and buy it, because I will read an excerpt from it anyway that's part of my comments tonight, so you can decide for yourselves. But, as I say, I'll read a short excerpt from that, but not before sharing some new and favorite poems of mine and others. The idea here is, it's as Ted Kooser said, the only trouble with this kind of thing is that the attention and applause clogs the arteries. Ted Kooser, a former U.S. Poet Laureate. So tonight I will give as much stage time to other poets and writers as to my own. Close. Speaking of poems, Poet Laureate. Okay, I told you I could not have been more surprised, and I couldn't be more grateful to Governor Tina Kotek for this honor, and the fact that the state chooses to continue this program. And I understand that despite cuts in arts funding, it will continue. It's a 2-year term that I'm involved with. I've been proselytizing poetry and preaching prose in Oregon's outback for a long time. And here I am, an overnight success after 7 decades of trying. My father used to say, if you paddle in milk long enough, it'll turn to cream. So after this appointment, things got a whole lot creamier for me. When recently presented with the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Screen Actors Guild, Jane Fonda had this to say: "It's okay to be a late bloomer as long as you don't miss the flower show." Well, I'm a bona fide card-carrying late bloomer, and celebrating this with all of you tonight is my flower show, so thank you so much. I'm 7 months into a 2-year term as Poet Laureate, traveling the state, sharing my love of poetry placed in the written word with Oregon's diverse audiences, younger and elder. 2 guesses why the emphasis on elder. I am encouraging my contemporaries to join in, and along with younger voices to share their important news, make their creative case on the page. The title I forgot to bring is called We Could Die Doing This. The subtitle is Dispatches on Aging from Oregon's Outback, and it's really sort of a call to the page, and a call to arms, and a call to managing canes and stairs, like, hey, we got this. So anyway. The high desert is my muse, and evident in much of what I write, including in this first poem. It's one that I read to the Oregon Senate in January this year when they reconvened. It chronicles my drive to southeastern Oregon on the night of the presidential election. I was scheduled to meet with a ranching couple the next day as part of an ongoing interview project I'm doing for the Oregon Desert Land Trust, who are putting together holdings around fields and into southeastern Oregon up against the Nevada border. The endangered Lahontan cutthroat trout is referenced in this poem. It resides in the streams high in the Trout Creek Mountains on Oregon's southern border. So this poem that came to me is titled Static. A remote highway in southeastern Oregon, late on a moonless November night, here and there my headlights might illuminate a reflective sign, wildlife refuge, wilderness area, that's about it. I tune in for news of my nation's fate, but only get static. Who's winning, I wonder? The road ahead looks dark and empty. But just then, out of the pitch, what is it? A mysterious single bobbing beam coming at me, too high, too slow for anything I can name. I tell myself, be thankful for any emissary of light. Closing in, it turns out my redeemer's a solo cowboy at a trot, headlamp secured above his brim, rifle and lasso strapped to the saddle horn. Maybe looking for strays, putting venison in the freezer, returning home after a visit with a far-flung neighbor. Does he wonder who's winning? I tune in for news of our country's fate, but only get static. The next day I ponder the dwindling Lahontan cutthroat, take pleasure in the skulking coyote, the golden rabbit brush, the Angus grazing in the meadows, the snow-dusted pueblos. I tune in for news of our shared habitat's fate, but only get static. Finally, I'm there. The sign on the gate says, "Their pit bulls don't take kindly to liberals." I knock anyway and go in, only to find lapdogs and common cause with the land we love in common. There's no discussion of winners, of losers, only doers in the race to conserve the grand scheme of all things wild and working. We turn off the static. So reading static at the Senate session and later that day, providing the invocation prior to the State of the State address by Governor Tina Kotek are but two of the many unexpected Poet Laureate events I've been honored to participate in. Another was opening Oregon's 2025 Business Summit with a poem. And I will share it with you. The following cautionary tale was inspired by a collaboration with classical pianist Hunter Nowak of In a Landscape. I think he's probably come to these parts. So picture yourself seated inside Fort Rock's giant amphitheater of basalt that rises up and out of that flat, boundless sagebrush ocean near Christmas Valley. The poem is titled, "There's Always More." We sit in the middle of an accidental island that once floated here, dazed, confused on landlocked waters. Read more in the melded scrolls embedded in the nearby cliff walls, or as described in the swallow's skywriting hieroglyphs, the canyon wren's spiraling laments. They chronicle the odyssey of a boiling crotch rocket of hot basalt jetting around underground, hunting down a pregnable fault, a superficial flaw, the perfect spot to roar skyward in order to make an outrageous display of molten devastation. But the eruption of this impudent magma was coolly greeted by the embrace of a giant inland sea, the sudden chill thwarting the intruder's bravado, reducing it to a froth of ash, a column of thousands of parachuting pebbles whimsically shaped like flames and tears. In the ages since, scoured by wind and rain, run aground by drought, only the ramparts remain of this beached atoll. But look at it now. How stalwart, how mighty. A reminder that for every act of destruction, there is an equal and opposite act of creation. That embedded in every catastrophe is the seed of something new. But hold on, there are two ways to look at this. For every creative wish come true, we have blown, broken, or thrown something away. Dandelion fluff, feathers, candles, wishbones, pennies, lovers, families, rivers, compassion, countries, and there's more. There's more. There's always more. So, thank you, Fort Rock, for that one. But for me, the very best part of being the Poet Laureate is the opportunity to teach in Oregon schools, libraries, community centers, churches, fairgrounds. And when teaching creative writing workshops, those of you who will participate in the next couple of days will find out, I generally offer an idea, a nudge, a prompt. What happens next, as many of you know from your own creative writing experiences, is alchemy, a form of magic requiring only pen and paper and a certain courage. Some of you will gather with me in the next coming days, and I guarantee we're going to make some good word trouble, some necessary word trouble, to paraphrase Congressman John Lewis. So what is the story each of us came to tell with our lives? What are the people, places, and events that inform that story? By writing about place, a third grader in rural Oregon, Paulina, is well on her way to learning about who she is. I come from a fish scale sleek as a feather. I come from a month of joyfulness where the sun sets and rises. I come from a dusty valley with gates made with solid wood. I come from a ranch where horses stir up the ground. Or this from a young cadet and candidate for a high school diploma enrolled at the Oregon National Guard Youth Challenge program. Are any of you aware of it or familiar with it? It's east of Bend. It's for teens, high school age, who've gotten kind of sideways with life. And it's a military-based program. There were 2 male platoons and a female platoon that I spoke to, and then groups of 15 broke out from each one sequentially, and I did workshops with each of those 15. And it, as I say, it's a military program, and so it kind of goes like this. Do I have permission to speak, ma'am? Yes, go ahead. Ma'am, go ahead. Ma'am, could you help me write a love poem? This is not that love poem, although in some ways it's the beginning of the most important kind of love, which is self-love, from one of these young cadets. I come from a black pot of ink, a well of darkness, greed, and cruelty. I've drowned 1,000 times, but not today. Today I spill the ink upon the page and turn shadows into light. And we were together for 45 minutes. We're so free on the page. We can be so free on the page, and I think those young cadets realize that. This is an excerpt by a woman of a certain age who participated in a recent workshop of mine, and in this case, the word "see" is S-E-A. I just loved it. This is a longer poem, but I just love this phrasing. See, tell me, are you coming in or going out, so I can know where to put my feet? Isn't that delightful? I know how that feels. So maybe tomorrow or the next day, you will take a moment to sit down and write a line or two to the prompt, I come from. Or maybe instead you will write a poem about a pet. We'll get to the birds in a minute. Yours or someone else's, such as Oregon poet Gary Miranda. Look him up if you don't know about him. He wrote this about his girlfriend's cat. And he didn't much like cats, but he liked his girlfriend, who's now been his wife for I don't know how long, a long time. So he did his best. Here's an excerpt of his poem titled Something Important, and I think he captures, any of you have cats? Do any of you have a cat? 1, 3, 4, 5, okay, good. I mean, I'm not asking you for, the balance in your bank account for crying out loud, I'm just asking for, you have cats.
Everyone likes cat people around.
Oh, good. So see if this doesn't just capture that cat personality. On my lap, a cat named Buick purrs idling. And I idly stroke her haunches, a beautiful thing, I know, though I don't like cats. I've never met a cat who didn't know something important I didn't know and wasn't about to tell me. Or, to the birds, what about a make-believe poem, such as Oregon poet and author Joe Wilkins came up when his sleepy son asked him for a bedtime story. And his son's request was, Dad, tell me a story about when we were birds. The poem is titled, My Son Asks for the Story About When We Were Birds. This is an excerpt, the first stanza. When we were birds, we veered and wheeled, we flapped and looped. It's true, we flew. When we were birds, we dined on tiny silver fish and the watery hearts of flowers. When we were birds, we sistered the dragonfly, brothered the night-wise bat, and sometimes when we were birds, we rose as high as we could go, light, cold, and strange. And when we opened our beaked mouths, sundown poured like wine down our throats. So, it's to you. Maybe tomorrow or the next day you will sit down and write a bedtime story in free verse, also known as open form poetry, for your child or grandchild about when we were all crickets or trees or humans being. Or instead, maybe you'll pen a poem for someone needing a poem, one that helps ease both the poet's and the reader's experience of loss. This line, I can hardly get through it every time. This is an excerpt from a British Somali poet named Waterson Shire, writing about her parents' divorce. I have my mother's mouth and my father's eyes. On my face, they are still together.
Oh.
And flying to the East Coast to my father's memorial, this poem came to me. It's titled Cropped Short. Once I had hair to my waist, and when finally I had it cut short, I still, for the longest time, ran my brush past where the cropped strands now so abruptly ended, moving it carefully through the imaginary locks to avoid tangles. They may as well have been real. That's how it feels to have you gone. Or how about this? First of all, how much time do we have? Never mind.
As
Oh.
much as you
How about after shopping for groceries, you write a poem about a fruit or a vegetable, making sure that it's a poem that does its job. That job is to change forever the reader's perception of the subject. Take, for example, this one-line poem by Joseph Hutchinson. And I have to mention that the subject of this poem was on sale at the market when I was shopping. So I bought two, and when checking out, I asked the weary-looking woman at the till if she liked poems. Some, she said, not looking up. I have one hold for you, I said. And holding my purchase up in the air, I recited Hutchinson's one-line poem. That's your assignment forever. Always have a poem in your pocket that you can just offer to somebody to cheer them up. So here's Joseph Hutchinson's one-line poem that I believe will change your perception of the subject forever. Artichoke. O heart, weighed down by so many wings. So the woman finished bagging my groceries, head down, saying nothing, printed out my receipt, handed it to me, and for the first time during our encounter, looked up and met my gaze. Thank you for the poem. So, as I say, have one at the ready to cheer up someone's day, like this one. This very familiar one by Emily Dickinson. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. Okay. So poetry freshens the world. It brings us alive, it keeps us alive, it holds us accountable to ourselves and others. And at this moment in USA time, poems have a big job, I think, to remind us about all we value about self, family, community. I don't need to tell Burns, Oregon, of valuing family and community, but hey. But if you ask me, poems are sort of easy access ambassadors of compassion and connectedness and love. They are a call to open arms, if you will. Mary Oliver says, poetry is a life-cherishing force. Poems are not words, after all, but fires for the cold, ropes let down to the lost, something as necessary as bread in the pockets of the hungry. And poems don't have to be highbrow or somber or long. As poet Alice Fulton says of Billy Collins, I don't know, I'm sure you have Billy Collins poetry in here somewhere. He has a new collection called Musical Tables, I believe it's called. And this poet said of that book, Collins puts the fun back in profundity. Here are two examples or so from Billy Collins. This one's titled 3 a.m. Only my hand is asleep. But it's a start. Or this one from Billy Collins. Saying goodbye is so sad. I don't even bother to turn around to see what it was you just threw at me. So before I conclude with the final poem, I'd like to read an excerpt from my latest title that is here. It was published by the Source Media, and it's the accumulation of 3 years' worth of columns that I've been writing for the Ben Source Weekly, and I'm still writing. The book, as I said, is titled We Could Die Doing This, Dispatches on Aging from Oregon's Outback. That title, by the way, is the result of various adventures with my 3 children as they grew up, and the adventures got more and more adventurous, and I would start sort of blurting out, we could die doing this. And they bring that up to me all the time now, over the silliest, smallest potential total. I mean, I am a catastrophizer. There is no question about that. So it has become a family tease, not to mention a statement of absolute truth. Not only could we die doing this, but we will. In case some of you weren't aware of that, I'll just sort of break it to you tonight. So here we go. This one is from, it's a spring one. And I'm not all that kind to the red-winged blackbird in the beginning of it, but you'll have to forgive me. The title of it is Ribbit. Go ahead, call me a batrachophile, a ranitophile. You can have your crocus, your yellow blaze of forsythia and daffodil, or the exuberant conklary song of the red-winged blackbird as it heralds its return north. For me, the real sign of spring is the sound of the peeper, the tiny paperclip-sized tree frog that nests all winter under leaves and underbrush, next to ponds, wetlands, or man-made water features. Not only are these mighty mites able to live on land or in water, but during the winter their tiny livers flush their bloodstream with what is essentially antifreeze, allowing them to slow their hearts to a state of dormancy until temps get back to a balmy 40 degrees. It's then the hooray begins. They hop out of hiding, a balloon of sound fills up their froggy chest, and the nighttime hullabaloo gets underway. Though its formal name is Pseudocris crucifer, another name for this cheery harbinger of spring is, no surprise, chorus frog. April is not just Poetry Month. It's also National Frog Month. A tribute to frogs' reemergence in spring. Okay, a bit niche, but the peeper's din does serve to put us on notice that we have another spring to celebrate. New beginnings, new adventures. In the world of spirit animals, frogs represent transition, the successful progression from one stage of life to the next, the capacity to move on from any situation. They come by this reputation honestly, given that their ancestors date back 250 million years. Most phases or transition periods humans experience as sequential, taking place in the progressive tense, like newborning, toddlering, adolescenting, adulting. These are all future forward names that imply certain expectations and structures. Young adult, find work and relationship. Midlife, skip the crisis and instead focus on growing a family, a business, a community, go. Then there's retirement. It's what happens after midlife, post-middle age, before decrepitude. It's when we're supposed to pursue leisure till the end of life. It's a bit amorphous as a phase, lacking in definitive cultural or social expectations, and it's a model that doesn't work for the vast majority of 65-year-olds who either prefer a different approach or can't afford to take off the work mantle, or both. In both cases, they're richer for it, if you're to believe reports on the benefits of staying engaged on purpose. The words retire, retiree, and retirement derive from the French retirer, meaning to withdraw, go away. In Europe, the common designation is pensioner, conjuring a social dependent who has ceased working, all take, no give. Words shape our reality. Retirement suggests backward motion. Believe it, and you will see it. As long as we keep using the word retirement, or even clever wordplay such as the new retirement, or refiring, or a bit more positive, starting older, a trace of withdrawal of endings is still in the air. Given our longer life expectancy, we need a new word for the 20+ years of activity after 65 for mapping this uncharted transition territory. Go Magellans. A word that often comes up when asked to describe the experience of the aging process is diminishment. The time left is shrinking. We want to take full advantage of it, but all systems are not as go as they used to be. Something we now must actively factor in when planning a day, a hike, a vacation, or climbing the stairs. If only we could stop the clock. Some think they can. Modern day Magellans of a different ilk are taking a page from the peepers, the hibernating peepers, placing their dead human bodies in liquid nitrogen, or in biostasis as it's called. Futuristic scientists speculate they can reverse death by preserving the brain and 3D printing a new body that, once technology gets up to speed, will replace the human. Once that technology gets up to speed is the operative phrase here. Meanwhile, hundreds of bodies lie in frigid waiting around the world. No joke. But without such draconian measures, and instead celebrated for the good, bad, and ugly of what it is, this phase of life is as rich, complex, and dynamic as any before it. It's definitely not easy or peasy. It requires we cope and adapt in ways we never imagined. But when has that not been true? Rather than retiring into the background, maybe the structure and expectation of this phase is to take the center of this age's stage with all the vitality, creativity, and contentment we can muster. The Spanish got it right. Their word for retirement is jubilación. If you say jubilation fast 10 times, it almost starts to sound like ribbon. Well, kind of, but you take my meaning. Okay, I'm going to conclude with a bird poem, and it's not what you call concluding really on an up note, but that's all right, we've had other up notes. This is one that I wrote after, actually, Kate mentioned the Baja. I do lead a writing retreat down there every single year. And early on, I think I've done this, well, I know I've done this 15 years now. In an earlier, not recently because they've been pretty much stopped, but I went to a cockfight. This is a poem about that. Patron saint. She quiets her baby with beer the eve of the festival of Saint Pilar. Urchins jam the shadows like startled fish. Barks of dump dogs curdle in the hem of darkness. Old men lean on crooked canes and crow, Gallo, pelea, pelea. 10 centavos at the gate, she slips inside the stark circle of light. Bird handlers cradle brightly feathered cocks. Trainers open ornate satin-lined boxes, each choosing a single silver blade. Showing off, slice keen slowly across extended tongue. From pockets pull red waxy thread, tie steel to black talon, not jerked solid. She holds her baby to her chest and calls out her bid. Making rounds, the fat vet collector grabs her breast, yields him all, she yields him all she made, selling flour tortillas. He thieves a kiss and leaves. Fingering her rosary, she rocks her baby, prays to Saint Pilar for luck, her bird to win. The trainers haze the roosters to circle center, a pistol shot straight-armed at the dark. It's begun. Feather geyser erupts, cock spike, jab cut. Her bird is down, jittery, panting, bleeding from the neck, plucked up quick, whole head stuck in trainer's mouth. He blows air through the tiny beak, forces blood out of drowning lungs to eke a final match from the living dead. Pelea, pelea. Cocks explode midair, jump and spur. The crowd is mad for more blood-stained dirt until death does its part. As proof, one limp bird is carried off. She collects her profits. On her way out, she signs the cross. Thank you all for your attention tonight. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And yeah. That's all I got. What do you got?
Do you want to say something more about the two workshops, the two other events that you'll do?
Well, there are actually 3 more.
Oh, okay.
There's the dramatic reading tomorrow evening of Via Lactea, which, don't even tell me, is that not here either? Oh, I know why, because I have 7,000 copies. Anybody who comes gets a free copy of Via Lactea. They're all in the car. I can run out and get some if anybody's interested. So that dramatic reading is basically a verse novel that I wrote about walking the Camino in Spain. And it was subsequently turned into a libretto. I turned it into a libretto, not knowing what I was doing, but it worked, I guess, sort of. And then it was performed as a full-length opera. Yeah. So there's that tomorrow evening at the Central Hotel at 6:30 p.m. And all of these are free. And then on Saturday, there is a writing workshop here at 10 in the morning for a couple of hours, which will be basically examining intersections of poetry and prose, fiction, nonfiction, sort of not coming in thinking I gotta write a poem, but you will. But there's a lot of ways to write a poem, thanks to narrative poetry and everything is very, very fluid. And then from 2 to 4 on Saturday, some of us will gather out at the Malheur Refuge for an illustrated journal. So, a workshop. Yeah. That should be interesting because I don't draw, but But I have some great ideas. Thanks to Nancy Bowens.
Oh, really?
Yes,
Yeah.
because she does this blind drawing.
Oh, wow.
And so I've adapted that to one of the writing prompts anyway. We're gonna have fun. They're all gonna be really fun. So if any of you are curious and have that certain courage that was mentioned earlier in the evening, come.
And where does that one meet? I was sort of signed up with that as part of the Bird Festival originally. So
Okay, on Saturday, 10 to noon is
it's
here. And then the other is at the refuge, Mount your, Janelle's, what? Headquarters. Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes.
I have some flyers I can.
Oh,
pass
great,
out.
oh, great. Well, thanks to you all again.
Thank you.
And